Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Suparna Kapoor, a highly accomplished professional with 32 years of experience across diverse domains, including engineering, project management, learning and development, human resources, and academia. Ms. Kapoor's most recent leadership role was at Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, where she played a key role in strategic HR, driving impactful organizational initiatives. Currently, she is the founder of LQ, a premier platform that provides holistic solutions in training, coaching, and consulting. Through LQ, she collaborates with top public and private organizations as well as esteemed academic institutions to foster growth and transformation. Her expertise lies in designing and delivering programs that enhance psychological and social learning, develop leadership capabilities, and enable individuals and teams to thrive. She employs innovative methodologies such as applied theater, experiential learning, and neuroscience backed strategies to create meaningful and measurable outcomes. Passionate about empowering professionals and cultivating high performing teams, Ms. Suparna is committed to making a lasting impact through her work. We are privileged to have her here today, and I'm sure her insights will be of immense value to all of us. Let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Suparna Kapoor. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jayanti, for this warm, very, very warm introduction. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I hope I'm audible. People can hear me well, see me.
Yes, yes, madam. You are audible.
Okay. Okay, fine, great.
Yes, madam.
Yes, great. So, really pleasure and honor, and I've been interacting with Dr. Saraswati for many, many years now, and it's always a privilege to be part of her initiatives. Recently, there was a conference, and now this FDP. So it's good to be here. I can at least see lots of names. I can't see too many faces, but that's okay. Yeah, we all understand that. Um, so, can I share my slides?
Yes, ma'am. You will be made the co host now.
Yeah. Okay. Is it visible?
Madam,
Are
it
there?
is visible.
Okay.
Yes.
Just trying to see where. Normally, this WebEx is a little different from any other platforms. I'm just trying to see. Okay. Um, so this is the topic that has been given to me, HRD and Industry 4.0. And I just added a little bit that how do we actually build a future fluent workforce? But before I go there, I would just like to, I mean, I've seen your schedule, but I would just like to have a very quick recap from any one of you or a couple of people of what has gone in the last few days. That would be really helpful for me. Any one of you, if you're willing to share, just few few sentences, few insights. Yeah, that's the most challenging, making people speak.
Ma'am, we had a
Yes,
lot of technical sessions.
yes.
And yesterday we had a session on IoT, AI, and a very interesting session about how AI is helpful in Industry 4.0.
Okay.
And today, the previous session was about cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
They were all technical, but very enjoyable and very engaging too.
Okay. So that's a task for me now to keep people engaged, right? In the later half of the evening. Yes. Okay, so I will also I will try to bring in a slightly different perspective because uh, you've had technical sessions, but we are now going to shift the focus a little bit and look at the human perspective uh, on this whole take on Industry 4.0 and AI. And AI has been the buzzword recently. We've all heard enough, especially with the DeepSeek and all of that coming in. There's been a lot of focus on AI specifically, Industry 4.0, but AI specifically. So we will spend some time on that, and then you can always put your questions in the chat, or we can have 10 or 15 minutes towards the end. Or if anybody wants to stop me in between, you are most welcome to do that. And I know there are a lot of very, very highly educated people here, so I'm not going to try and give too much of gyan here because already all of you know a lot of things. What I'll try and bring in is my own experience with people, how things are changing from a more world view, and then what is it that we can do as educators, as people who train managers, as people who develop technologies. So what is it that we can do differently so they are able to thrive in the world? So that's what we are going to look at. I will, yes, yeah. So, okay, slide is not moving. Right. So I already have had an introduction. So about more than a year back, I left my job with HAL and I started something on my own because I wanted to make a greater impact on the world because the world is changing so fast, and I wanted to ensure that people are able to cope with whatever is happening, and we are able to build holistic solutions where learning, leadership, and life integrate together. And that's the whole idea of LQ. So that's a little bit about me. Industry 4.0, I'm not going to speak about that. We all know what Industry 4.0 is uh, and how it has evolved. I'm sure I saw there was a session where the history of it was mentioned. So I'm not going to go there. And by now, we are all well versed with what it means. It is a combination of digital technologies, automation, AI, IoT, and data analytics, especially big data analytics. That is what is happening a lot these days. Uh, what we are going to look at is what is the role of how do we develop the human resources that will eventually design and deliver these solutions, design and deliver these technologies, enable the manufacturing of tomorrow, and make an impact on the on the organizations and the systems that they are part of. So why is HRD crucial? It's crucial because it looks at individual and organizational effectiveness and growth. It prepares employees for new skills, and that's what I called how do we build future fluent managers or leader, people who are able to adopt themselves to what is happening right now and what is expected to happen in the future, because the future is really catching up with us very, very fast. And how do we enable a learning culture? Uh, and that's a very critical role of human resource development that we are going to spend some time about talking about. So I've just created this diagram which tells why we are talking about all of this. And when we look at this diagram, what we are basically looking at is uh, uh, an intersection of three kinds of uh, systems or environments, if we say. So one, there is a nature of work, then there is a nature of the world, and then there is the nature of technology. And what we are looking at is how do these intersect together, and what are the skills needed so that we are able to traverse all these worlds around us in a much more effective way. And we'll take each of these diagrams little segments separately. So when we talk about the nature of the world, uh, we've all been hearing this word called VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And every single day that, and most of us see the news or read the newspaper, every single day we are seeing how much the world is changing. And this change is not only at a physical level, it is at a geopolitical level, it is at a social level, it is at a country level, it is at policy level. We are seeing what Trump is doing with tariffs, which is changing the world, and our share markets are just tanking every now and then. So the nature of the world has changed a lot from the time that uh, 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. Boundaries of the countries are changing. There's wars that are going around. Climate change is the order of the day. So the world that we are living in and the world that we are going to live in tomorrow is going to be extremely different from the world that we've ever envisaged in our lifetimes. And we can see that change happening in a very um, explosive kind of a way, the way things are changing in the world. So this VUCA world creates a lot of uncertainty. It creates complexity. It creates confusion because we do not know what is going to work in the next year down the line, what is going to work few years down the line, what is going to work even tomorrow. We don't know that. So the rate of volatility is also increasing drastically, and climate adds to a completely different angle to it. So the nature of the world is extremely different from what we have ever lived in or what we are even thinking possible. And what we need to look at is how will that world be 10 years, 15 years down the line. How can we understand the patterns that are happening in this world of today, and that can give some answers to tomorrow. And that's where technology also helps us. The second is, of course, the nature of work. Any one of you can stop me if you have any questions or anything. I mean, because this is a WebEx is a little less interactive, so I'm not able to see too many windows there. So you can please stop me or have any question, you can just raise your hand. So the nature of the work. Uh, if we talk of traditional work, the traditional work world that we lived in was very role and job focused world. But that world has changed. Now it is not role focused, it is knowledge focused. People who have knowledge, people who have information are the most powerful people in today's work or organizations. The work has also become hybrid in nature. We have offline, we have online. Look at how we are interacting. It's completely online. Earlier, the same program would need people to travel, come, attend, and now we have far more number of people who can be part of this. So the hybrid work has changed a lot of things for us. We Our offices have shifted from the office to the home, and the time uh, the time has also expanded. There, the work life boundaries have changed. So the nature of work by itself has changed. And when we are talking of nature of work, I'll also try and bring another perspective that the nature of our lives have also changed. And why I'm saying that, because if we look at the longevity data, when India got its freedom, uh, sorry about this, India got freedom, then the average lifespan was even less than 60 years, around 60 years. Today, if we look at, we are well past 75 years, and this life is going to increase only. So our lifespans is going to increase. And why is that important? Because as lifespan increases, our career spans also increase. So today we have to prepare people for careers which may last much longer than they have ever lasted before. So the nature of work itself has changed, and of course the nature of technology. And this is the topic of the whole program that we are talking about. Um, and the technology itself is changing so fast. So the rate of change of technology is immense. What would happen in 10 years, uh, a decade ago or 20 years ago, is not, it now happens in 1 year. Look at the amount of um, penetration of AI and Industry 4.0 that has happened in the last 5 years. Uh, Technology was never so all pervasive earlier before. So the rate of change is tremendous. Uh, so it is pervasive. That means it encompasses all areas of our life, whether we look at it from health, education, um, travel, finances, everywhere. Technology is everywhere. There's not only one segment that it exists. So to be able to traverse all these different changes that are happening in the world of work, in the world, in the work, in the world, and in technologies, we need to have very specific skills. And these skills are not only essential for us; these are the skills that we need to build in the managers and technologists of tomorrow. So any anyone would like to say, add anything? What do you think are those skills that we actually need? And then I can move on to my next slide. Any perspective here? Anything that I have forgotten in what is changing in the work, in the world, in technology? Anybody would like to add anything? You're most welcome. Okay. So I just hope people are there. See this. Yeah. So just put a quote there. The illiterate of the 21st century, and this is a quote by a very famous author and futurist, uh, Alvin Toffler, who said the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think that's the task that is set out for us as trainers, as teachers, as academicians, um, as people who are part of this whole education um, industry, I would say, or education domain, I would say that we need to bring in this perspective that we need to be continuously learning, unlearning, and relearning everything that is happening around us. And that is what we need to uh, we need to think for ourselves as well as people that we interact with or people that we train in and out. Labor with expertise to be no need to be more, yes, of course, and we will come to that point. It's a very, very relevant point. Thank you so much for that. So to be able to do all the learning and the unlearning and the relearning, I'll just bring in this perspective of a growth mindset. And this is given by a very famous researcher called Carol Dweck. It's a very famous book of hers, where she says that in today's world, what we need is people with a growth mindset. And when we say a growth mindset, it is about the ability and the belief that we can learn anything that we want to learn. People with growth mindset are the people who are always willing to put in that extra work, put in that, uh, have that zeal for improvement, are ready to take on challenges, are ready to embrace opportunities for change, uh, keep continuously, are consistent and persistent over whatever that they want to learn, are willing to take feedback from others. Feedback is one of the most powerful ways of learning, and they always welcome feedback. Um, Vis-a-vis people with fixed mindset who become very, and that's many times happens with almost all of us, that we become very, very defensive when somebody gives us a feedback. But feedback is an extremely powerful way of learning. And whenever they make mistakes and they fail, they don't blame themselves for that. They just take the lessons that come from those setbacks and move forward and continue the learning. In fact, there are some organizations and some academic institutions who celebrate failure because they say that failure is, we have all heard this, that failure is the stepping stone to success. But they are those people with growth mindset actually look at failure as as a learning exercise. And that does not mean that we keep on failing and we keep on experimenting, but it only means that what I need to learn and I then need to move on and not just stay with it, or try and find fault with others or blame others or be discouraged about it. So basically, it is that growth mindset. And I always say that whether it is progress of the world or whether it is things that go bad in the world, it's always the mind that plays the game. If we talk about artificial intelligence, it's mimicking of the human brain. If we talk about natural intelligence, that's of course something very, very unique to human beings. So it's always the mind and the mindset which becomes extremely important in anything that we are wanting to do, which is which is new for us, which is something that we have not explored before ever. So this growth mindset is something that we need to develop both in ourselves and in people that we interact with. And when we have this, then the other skills become much more easier to learn, much more easier to adopt. and much more easier to teach also in all possible ways. Now, coming to the skills, key skills and competencies, uh, basically, of course, the first part is the digital skills and data literacy. Now, earlier we used to say only computer programmers need to learn programming, or we need to know technology only if we are working in technology sector, but that doesn't hold good anymore. All of us need to be aware of a little bit of the I won't say programming language, but the concept of programming, the concept of data. How do we read data? How do we interpret data? And that also helps us in our research. I think one of the very important aspects for any researcher today is to be able to interpret data in a meaningful way. So, understanding of data, interpretation of data, learning the skills that are various tools and technologies that are available to us to be able to do that. That is something that is not left only to a certain set of people. It is something that needs to be spread all across at whatever level that we are in our careers or in the industry. It could be a simple blue collar worker, but they also need to understand those skills, because if not today, tomorrow our industries are going to be very, very different. We may need to be working with robots. We may need to be completely data driven organizations in industry, and that's what industry 4.0 is all about. So these skills are skills that need to be spread across organizations, across industries, across all sectors, wherever that we are. So now that becomes a key factor for us to be able to do that. And when we say that, it does not mean that it only science students or only engineers can understand this. I think this is data is more common sense that than we think. The only thing is, how much are we applying ourselves to it? How much are we able to use the tools? And these days there are enough number of tools that make our lives easier in able to understand and interpret data. So not running away from numbers, not thinking that only this is my part to understand. Really looking at data, because data gives us a lot of answers. Data also provides us gaps and solutions which may actually be very useful for us and also useful for people who want to become entrepreneurs, because when they're able to see those gaps and when they're able to see the problems that exist, they are able to find solutions to those problems. So data and digital skills, of course, are the foundation for that. Um, the 4 C's of 21st century. Now, when we talk of AI, or when we talk of any of the tools, and many of us use the tools, including me, I use AI, Chat GPT to help and support myself. But what is the challenge that it is creating for us? The challenge that it is creating for us, that after a point we become so dependent on it that we lose our own thinking and our own creativity. So as per research, the key skills that are essential for the 21st century, the 4 C's, are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Now, how do we develop those skills? How do we enable uh, people in the industry? How do we enable students? How do we enable educators to be able to develop and disseminate these skills? Um, and why I'm asking this question is because these are skills that are very, and when we say skill is something that requires practice. It is not knowledge. If I tell you the basic, should I say, uh, communication, if I teach you communication, if I tell you some theory about communication, that cannot improve my communication. Communication can only be improved through communication. So that's why these are skills that we need to invest in for ourselves as well as people that we are part of. So improving our communication, collaborating with people, and now with technology and tools, we can collaborate with people across the globe. It is not limited to boundaries. It is not limited to organizations. It is not limited to nationalities. We can collaborate with large number of people to be able to think in a way that we can find solutions to problems. So critical thinking becomes very important, and creativity, because these are the factors that that separate us from AI. AI has creativity, but it does not have human creativity. In fact, I, I, I wrote a paper on AI and creativity, and what we realized through the paper was that uh, create AI supports human creativity. It cannot replace human creativity. Human creativity is beyond something. But the problem is that when we start using AI, we start depending on AI for even small things that we were probably using our brain for earlier. So that over dependence is something that we need to stop, and to be able to do that we need to build these skills in people, and these skills can be built in multiple ways. They can be built through experiences, they can be built through giving small projects and problems, they can be built through they can be built through uh, allowing students to work as teams within within the educational system itself, by helping them interact with academicians, by helping them interact with industry. This is how we can build these skills, and these are not easy skills to build. These are skills that require investment of time, effort, and energy. So these four C's are really, really important, and this is again coming from research. Uh, the next skills, and this is something that I'm adding from, of course, research, but also from my own personal experiences. With There is so much conversation around technology that is happening that we are actually forgetting our human skills. We are forgetting that eventually we get triggered and run by emotions. We may think ourselves as very rational human beings, but we are all very emotional people. We are driven by emotions, we take decisions based on emotions, and we connect with people not through technology but at a very human level. So these emotional intelligence and human skills are very important. And when I'm talking of human skills, this includes skills like empathy. These include skills like ability to question something that's a status quo, the courage, the risk taking ability. So these are skills that are very, very important. And this is something that we had. So I had attended a conference at XLRI, and a lot of people from some of the best academic institutions were part of that conference. And one of the things that they mentioned that they find is the biggest gap among management students is this ability to collaborate, ability to manage themselves and their own emotions, and the ability to empathize with others. So this is a huge gap that is existing, and sadly our focus uh, has shifted from building these skills to only looking at building the technical skills in people. Yes, we need to have digital literacy, we need to have those digital skills, but without these human skills, we will just become robots, and then we are replaceable. All we want is that we cannot be replaced. That's all what we want. And if we lose this emotional and the human perspective within ourselves, then there's no difference between a robot and a human being. And then once I'm a robot, I can very easily be replaced. So these skills are very important to develop. And again, as a trainer facilitator, we use many ways in which we can help students and even professionals develop these skills. Uh, we use theater based tools, we use experiences, we use um, writing, drawing, which are very basic level things that we as human beings can do, which technology cannot do. So that's another important skill. Then, of course, developing authentic, ethical, and inclusive leaders. And why I'm saying that is important because uh, unless we build these ethics and this inclusivity in the technology that we are building, we will again create technology which will be harmful for the world. If our coding of AI tool or Chat GPT is built on uh, biased perspectives, if it is built on frameworks which do not include everybody, then that will again create a world which will not be a just and a fair world. And we all want to live in a happy, peaceful, just, fair world with equal opportunities for each one of us. And if we are not able to build leaders who have their fundamentals right, uh, then these leaders will bring in strategies, bring in technologies which will be harmful for the universe. And we are seeing enough and enough examples of this in today's political leadership. And I will not go there, but I'm just bringing this thought for each one of you. So I think that's it is important that we build these skills, and I'm specifically not focusing on the technology part because that has would have been said enough and more. And I'm looking at the human perspective that is extremely important and is somehow getting forgotten in today's world. We've become too focused on technology and we're forgetting the human perspective, which actually drives the world. So this is a very old model of Henry Mintzberg, who's a very famous researcher, uh, 50s and 60s. That's when he had brought this model that managers have basically 10 roles to play, which can be put into three baskets: interpersonal roles, informational roles, and decisional roles. So when we talk of interpersonal roles, it is a figurehead, a leader, somebody who liaisons with others, who builds teams. So that's the interpersonal role. Then the informational role, uh, somebody who's a spokesperson, like we have Dr. Jayanti here. She's right now a spokesperson for the college. We have people who monitor the flow of information, who also monitor the confidentiality of the information, and somebody who actually disseminates the information. And then we have the decisional roles, which is the most significant role of a manager. How do I allocate my resources? How do I negotiate with others for resources and people? How do I manage conflicts that happen within and outside of the organization with different set of stakeholders? And how do I think like an entrepreneur within an organization? An entrepreneur is somebody who finds solutions for unique problems. So how can I be an entrepreneur within the organization, right? And these are the roles that managers need to play, whether it was in the 60s or whether it is today. The only difference is that technology is now helping us do some of these roles. And I would probably just share one more slide and then stop sharing and would ask people how do they think. So you could probably spend a minute on this slide and look at these various roles that are mentioned here. And then I'll shift to the next slide and bring in what are the different technologies that exist. And then we'll try and see if we can map how each of these roles can be enhanced through the use of technology. And I'll stop sharing and we can probably have a little bit of a conversation there. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue. So if you look at these key components of Industry 4.0, we have the smart machines, we have data-driven insights, we have connected system through Internet of Things, we have cloud computing where everything is available to us at all times in a safe space. We have cyber security, and we have 3D printing and other additive manufacturing technologies that we are talking about, which help us in innovation and customization. So these are the different components of Industry 4.0. And what I would actually like to bring your attention back to is how do these technologies help us in delivering some of the roles that managers in the industry today play. And I will stop the sharing and I will come back here, and anybody can just add their perspective or share anything that they would like to speak. How do you think that technology can help us in improving some of these roles? And you can feel free to speak. Yes, anybody would like to say anything? How do we relate the previous slide with Industry 4.0 in today's context? Sir, could you speak and just, I'm not able to understand your question, so if you could speak, that would be nice.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Good evening.
Hello, hello, sir.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In the previous slide, you showed one active, what is the responsibility of the managers, some
Correct.
defined 50 years back,
Correct.
the decades back, which was
Yes.
conventional method. Now you are saying things are evolving and Industry 4 is coming with lot of technology being used, like big data, so many things. We are also from the age of the previous one where we were not exposed to this. Now, can you just relate this to the present context in terms of how the managers are equipped to face such situations? What are
Correct.
the managers should
Yes.
actually?
So that was exactly my question, that how do we, so if anybody would like to give any input, otherwise I can explain, but that was exactly my question, that how do we, how how do those roles which were defined 50 years ago, and those are still the roles that are essential for managers, how have those roles changed with new technologies, or how will technology help us in delivering those roles better? So that was exactly the question that I asked, and that's why I put off my slides. And I thought if we could just have a little bit of discussion. Anything you would like to add, sir? Like, how do you think? How do you think your role has changed? How do you think technology is helping you? So how many of us? And that's not a, that's a very relevant question. I'll change my question. Almost all of us use Amazon, right? Or anything else, any other platform that we use for buying stuff. It makes it easy to manage data, right? Now, whenever we are buying anything on any of these platforms, how do we make our decisions? How do we make a buying decision? What are the criteria that we use? Employee data, of course, yes, you are right. So I'm asking a very off education, off industry question. All of us buy stuff on the online platforms. Whenever we are buying something, of course, one is our own personal requirement. I need this, I need this, I need this. But in that also, how do we actually make decision that I want to buy this particular mobile phone, or I want to buy this particular item? How do we make those decisions? And the way we make those decisions, is it different when we go to a shop? Is it different when we are buying on an online platform? Do you think that the way we, by past experience? Okay. Okay. So your own history is always coming up on these platforms. Of course, one is that. So it gives you very personalized inputs about everything that you want to buy. So that data is already available with the platform. So that prods you, that nudges you into making decisions. Okay, great. What else? What else? What helps us in making those buying decisions?
Ma'am, generally,
Hmm.
we teach customer behavior in class,
Yeah.
and this is what generally works out. There is a process, and we have some memory stored internally.
Mm-hmm.
And we also acquire some information
Mm-hmm.
from the external sources. It might be an
Mm-hmm.
advertisement, it may be
Mm-hmm.
my neighbor, it may be my cousin, whoever has
Yeah.
used a specific product category,
Okay.
rather.
Okay. Okay.
And I accumulate all these internal and external resources, and then I choose some three or four categories of product or brands which
Mm-hmm.
actually fit into my budget
Okay.
and also my preference categories, and finally I choose one among them. So
Correct.
there is a huge process, whether it's a 10 rupee pen that I go for, or just a villa or my lifetime saving, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
There is a process that I undergo. So basically, what I depend upon is my own wise counsel
Okay.
that prevails upon me
Okay.
at that point of time. So it will be a culmination of all these ideas.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you for this input. Somebody else was saying something. Yes.
Evening, can I say something?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Ma'am, in my opinion, based on the rating and the reviews that we receive,
Absolutely,
may help us to
absolutely.
make fine decisions.
Correct. And thank you so much for this input. So this is one of the things we use, rating, right? Now, if we go and buy in a physical shop, I will never have a rating. I will never have the data with me. How good is that product? How many people have bought that product? How have they rated that product? What is the feedback? We sometimes read reviews. If you are buying something which is more expensive in nature, we read those reviews. So now that is the power of data that we use. So now we make our decisions differently. Of course, what Dr. Jayanti said, that we use our mind, yes, but that mind is already influenced by a lot of things that are happening around us, knowingly or unknowingly. The data that is being fed to us knowingly and unknowingly, right? So the way we make decisions has changed. In the same way, the way managers make decisions has also changed, because there is a lot of information that is flowing to them. There is a lot of data that is available to them. So earlier, the decisions that were made more intuitively are now being made by more use of more data. So that decision making role itself has changed very drastically. Similar way, if I look at the informational roles, the way we used to give information earlier 20 years ago and the way we transmit information now, people don't even send emails. More than half the work happens on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is now considered proof enough to even provide it in a court of law. So you don't need contracts to be able to do work all the time. So the way that uh, exchange of information happens itself has changed drastically, right? So our dependency on technology has become so much that sometimes we think we are making decisions, but actually it's the technology which has made the decision already for us. And one of the biggest example is, and I'm sure a lot of us see a lot of things on these Netflix and Primes. One of the biggest things that happens there, and I'm just sharing this as an example, is that the moment you finish an episode, already the next one is lined up there. And what do we end up doing? Watching series after series after series, because there's a nudge there that tells us, oh, the next one is coming up, and they know where to stop the previous one. And if I compare this with the time when we used to wait for 1 week for a next episode to come, it's an unimaginable world. And now when we have become so impatient in everything that we want to achieve or want to do, the same impatience goes to our work environments also. So our expectations from our juniors is different. The expectations of our expectation from our students are different. We want everything to happen fast, and the same is true for them. They also want the results to happen fast. So the way we are interacting with the world has changed, and in the same way, the delivery of those roles by managers has also changed. And that's the power of data that we are talking about. And many a times we are not even aware that that data is having so much power over us. We just think that, oh, it's a simple rating and I know 4.5, or if they say MRP is 500 and they are saying discounted price, we don't go around finding out whether that really is the discounted price. We believe that, and that's why we say that it is more authentic ethical leaders that are required to build and program that technology that we are using. Otherwise, all the roles can go haywire. So that way, each of the way we deliver these roles, these informational roles, now when we have to build teams, we may have teams which have never met each other in probably months, because the teams are working offline. They don't ever come to office. Now, as a leader, as a manager, how do I bring in that commonality of purpose? How do I bring in that commonality of vision? How do I motivate these people? That everything of that is now a completely different perspective. And that's why we say that focus on technology is good, but the focus on connections is extremely important. Because eventually, howsoever much technology we have, it is people who are going to deliver results for us. It is people who are going to change the world for us. And that's why those people are extremely important. Anybody else would like to share anything, any other thought that is going on? So just coming back to this one. Yeah, coming back to this one again. So,
Ma'am, sorry for interrupting.
yes.
There you are comparing with the Amazon delivery goods and also that is at our personal level, whether we purchase it or not based on the feedback also. But coming to the managerial level, when you are connecting with the people, can't you think that it affects the emotion of the people?
Of course, of course. And that's why we say that the interpersonal role of a leader has become very different, because if people are not available to us on site, if people are not there physically, then how do we actually connect with the emotions and with the how do we actually motivate them? So the interpersonal role itself has changed in technology, in the times of technology. Now, like suppose I would have been physically in a classroom with you, my interaction with you would have been completely different.
Yeah.
In this kind of a mode, my interaction with you is very impersonal, if I have to
Yes.
say that. Right? Now, this impersonal relationship does not work for a manager. A
Yes.
manager needs to build a personal relationship if I have to
Yes.
get work done.
Mm.
So
If
when
he keeps
technology,
on hearing to the feedback received by like data you are collecting from for these goods and all that, if he start taking information from other persons, from one person perspective of view, my feelings and my understanding is different from others.
correct.
So he cannot get onto a commonality whether what actually the person is, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. That is true. And that's why we say that it's always good to interact with people in person.
Person. Yes.
Yes. I
So
mean,
this feedback won't be providing a good means of assessing the person's ability, I think.
yes, they can help us deliver a task, but connect will not happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why if you see, look at Gallup's data, they say that more than 50% of people are not engaged in their work.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of disengagement. And why is that disengagement? Because we are not paying attention to people.
Hmm.
We are paying too much attention to,
The
I mean,
work delivery.
correct, just the work, the delivery. And I think in the last few months, we've seen enough debate about how many hours you should work and not work and all that stuff that is happening in today's world. But what I'm
Hmm.
saying is that work is not life. And people are people. They are not commodities.
Yeah,
They are
yeah,
not,
that's true.
they are not products, right? And we need to understand that. So on one side, it helps, technology helps managers get their tasks done in a better way because I can get specialists from across the world, but it
Yes,
also creates a barriers in personal connections.
true, ma'am. Hmm.
It creates barriers in people coming together and working as a team and be charged and motivated. Can we have a cricket match offline? Just
Hmm.
imagine, how would a cricket match be offline? Not
Yeah.
possible, right? Because people have to be on the ground.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
And industry is exactly like that. You can't play the game with technology. You have to be on the ground because everything changes on the ground.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's why technology is an enabler, but it also sometimes is a blocker. So
Yes.
when we talk of making decision, it helps us in making decisions because it
Time
gives us,
management could be done.
absolutely, it gives us a lot of tools to schedule our time. It gives us data which makes our task easier. It gives us uh, it gives us tools which will help us make decisions in a very systematic way.
Yes.
But again, I mean, just another question, though it's a rhetoric question, we never go to a doctor who who knows how to handle a robotics machine. We always go to a doctor who's very experienced doctor.
Yes, yes.
Correct. We don't say, oh, he's learned the best technology and he can do this very well. No. How long has that person been working? What's their experience? Because there are a lot of decisions which come from practice, which come from experience, which comes because I have been in that situation n number of times and I know, okay, this is what needs to be done. Howsoever data can support me, but again, it is left to individuals to be able to make those decisions. And that's why leaders make so much difference to the world.
Yeah, true, true.
And that is the perspective that technology is helpful, but we don't need to be over dependent on it. We don't need to see people just as products. They are actually people with real and live emotions.
So thank you, ma'am. After decades, I find one person who understands in that direction. Hats off.
Okay, right. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Slide is not moving again. Right. So this is something we already saw. So so the key takeaways for managers and in industry 4.2 is, of course, data driven leadership, and we've already spoken about it, so I won't go there much. But there are 2 points that I want to emphasize again is lifelong learning and agility. That means ability to change quickly and fast. So one of the things in a VUCA world is to develop agility. And when we say agility, it's like a cheetah. Cheetah always runs very fast. And if it has to change direction, it does not lose its balance. It keeps running fast and it is still able to maintain balance and change direction. And that's the agility that we need to develop in ourselves and we need to develop in students and managers for tomorrow, because they need to be able to change very, very fast, uh, because the world is changing so fast, and also be able to collaborate across disciplines. If I am a mechanical engineer, then I need to be able to interact with electronics guy. I need to interact with a computer guy. I need, because the solutions will all be holistic solutions. The boundaries will just dissolve. And the more boundaries we create in our work, the more difficult it becomes for us to be able to learn in a holistic way. And that is important in industry 4 environment, because as we know, they are all connected. Every system is connected to other system. So for those connections, we need all kinds of people. So the boundaries need to go. And of course, the last bit, and we've already spoken a little bit about, is ethical and responsible leadership. There's a huge debate now. If I look at something like auto driven self driven cars, now the problem is not that self driven cars technology is not advanced. It's very, very advanced. This is something that I heard from one of the a person who's written a book on very initial books on AI. And when I was having this conversation, he said the problem with technology is not that the technology is not advanced. Today we have technologies that I can put bots into your bodies, and that bots can get all data, health records from your body. The problem is that we don't have the ethical framework to put in place to be able to do this. I do not know that when a self driven car will have an accident, whom will I blame for it, the accident on? Will it be the manufacturer? Will it be the service provider of that car? Will it be the city municipality? Who will I blame? Will it be the programmer? Whom will I blame when a self-driven car does an accident? So now that is where the question of ethics come in. How do we build and navigate ethics in the AI and the technology systems that we are building? The other aspect is, of course, cyber security, and we are seeing terrorism attacks that happen through networks. We are seeing um, airports going down just because somebody has put a bug into this. So the cyber security becomes important, and for that we need people who believe that competition is not about harming other industry. Competition is the ability to work together and to be able to learn and ensure that all of us grow together. And of course, the third part is the workforce well-being. I think this has become very important because the work and life boundaries have completely dissolved now. Like right now, also 7, it's almost 8:15, 8:30, and we are still kind of working, right? So whereas that was not the case at least 15, 20 years ago. So the workforce well-being becomes important because we are all available 24 hours. We are always hooked to our mobiles. We are always hooked to technologies. We can't let the Wi-Fi go down even for a minute. So that creates a challenge and a stress into our systems. How do we ensure that that stress is managed? And the other reason for stress is also continuous change, the uncertainty that exists. If we look at students today, they are so unsure how the economy is going to grow, what kind of jobs they are going to get, how long will they be able to sustain that job, um, how how will their traditional roles change? Managers who spent 15, 20 years are now worried about that. How are their roles going to change? Will they become extinct? So this by itself creates a lot of stress in people. And when people are stressed, the chances that they make mistakes are very, very high. So the well-being of people becomes extremely important in this technology-driven world. Uh, just because there is no concept of time, it's completely gone now. But human beings, our human bodies, which have evolved over tens or thousands of years, are not built like that. We are not built for that kind of stress. We are not built for that kind of availability all the time. So there needs to be that balance that needs to be built in, and attention paid on our physical, mental, social, emotional well-being. So that for that we need leaders who focus on not only on profits but also on people who bring those profits. So that is important. So Charles Darwin, we all know the Darwin's theory of evolution, and this is a quote that is coming from him centuries ago, that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. And change is what we need to literally ready people for. Change is what we need to uh, ensure that becomes a constant in our lives, because that's what the world is, that's where the world is actually moving. And to be able to do that, the role of the human resource development or training or teaching becomes extremely important. So in organizations, when I look at industry 4.0, or when I look at how do I bring in these systems and practices, so one is, of course, somebody had mentioned it earlier also, that the labor workforce needs to be trained really, really well. So earlier we used to say the blue collar workers work with their hands and the white collar work people work with their brains. But now that does not hold good anymore. All of us need to work with technology at all points of time. So we need to reskill and upskill our workforce continuously, whatever be the industry, whether the industry is aerospace, whether the industry is automotive, whether the industry is just a service industry. Everywhere we need to continuously upskill and reskill people. And to be able to do that, we can use technology to be able to do that. So a little bit basics um, about these artificial intelligence, about machine learning, about industry is needs to be given to all members within the industry. It does not stay with only some specific set of people. Identifying future skill gaps. What are the gaps that are going to exist? And these could be gaps in terms of technology. These could be gaps in terms of behaviors. This could be gaps in terms of socio-cultural changes that are happening all around us. So if we even think of the way that our children are growing up, it is very different from the way we are growing up. We have grown. And these are the children that are going to enter into the industry tomorrow. And when they come into the industry, they bring their own ways of working, thinking, perspectives, behaviors. So all of those gaps need to be understood, and we need to be able to identify talent and then develop that talent to be able to deliver not for today but for 5 years or 10 years down the line, because training people is an expensive exercise. uh, we need to train people to retain people for at least 5 years, and then only we can get some return on an investment. So that is something we need to understand. So whether it is a white paper that we look at, whether it is a core group that is created within an industry, within an organization, to understand what the different technologies that are coming in, which are going to impact that particular sector of work, whatever it is, the role of HR along with the strategy groups becomes very important. So when I say HR these days, the whole concept of HR itself has changed. Now HR is not that typical HR we used to talk about earlier. Not HR is a more strategic HR, and there are a lot of technology leaders who are entering into HR because technology and HR have become so integrated. So that kind of understanding of uh, the skills, as well as how do we ensure people get those skills for tomorrow becomes important. Then of course organizational culture and change management, as we said, change is something that is all pervasive, and the culture of continuous learning that has to be built into the organization. We cannot say, oh, I have been doing this job and this is all I'm going to do for the next 5 years. That's not possible in today's world. Now if that has to happen, then the entire culture of the organization needs to be changed. The culture has to be very robust, very adaptive, very customer friendly culture, very environment sensitive culture. People who know what's happening in the industry, and people who are ready to take opportunities, ready to take risks, ready to take challenges, and are ready to innovate and adapt very quickly. So that becomes a very important role of the human resources within the organizations that we are part of. Then, of course, leadership development, as I've already spoken about that much in detail. Not only leaders who are technologically smart, but leaders who are ethically strong, who have that foresight to look into the future, who are able to connect different dots that are happening around us, who are able to make sense of the large amount of data that is available to us. So that kind of leaders need to be developed from the very beginning. So earlier we used to say that we develop leaders who spend 15, 20 years in the industry. Now that doesn't hold good anymore. We need to develop leaders who are 5 years into the industry, because within 5 years the industry will change. So we need to start building those leaders very quickly on. Then of course the HR tech and people analytics, as somebody had already mentioned in the chat, that lot of people based data uh, can be interpreted, can first be collected and then interpreted from all the information that is filled into our systems in the industry. Where uh, when do people take leave the most? Now that's a data that is very easily available now to us. Uh, when is the time that is the highest when people want to leave an organization? Now that data is really available to us at very easily. Now if I'm able to get those data points which are important for the industry, then I'm able to retain people better. I'm able to give them solutions and incentives that are very personal in nature. And the HR tech also helps us in hiring people who are more aligned to the roles and jobs that we are putting for. But again, here I would like to put a caveat that we cannot only use technology for hiring and training people. Technology again is an enabler, but again, people intervention is extremely, extremely important. So we need, in HRD, we need people who are able to integrate the people and the technology perspective together. Now that becomes important, and they are able to look at data and in a way that helps the people who are part of the industry, not data just for the sake of data, because that also happens a lot. There are a lot of organizations who have these diversity and inclusion initiatives, but on the ground, when we speak to people, they say that a lot of it is just data. On the ground, things haven't changed that much, and that's true in almost all the sectors that we are talking about. So now that is something that we need to look at. How will data help us in improving the effectiveness of individuals and organizations? So that's where the HR tech and people analytics helps us. When we talk about training, the whole idea of training has changed with Industry 4.0 coming in. And why I'm saying that, the first change that happened was when these online learning platforms like the Coursera's and the edX came in. People realized that they can learn from the best academicians across the world. I don't need to go to Harvard to learn somebody from Harvard. That professor has created a course which most of the time I'm able to get for free, and I'm able to learn what somebody sitting in Harvard is learning. So that was the first change that happened in the whole idea of training and teaching that we are talking about. But from there we have evolved a lot because technology has evolved a lot. So from there, we have actually used to very personalized and bite-sized learning. That means how much. So when we talk, even when we are learning on any of these tech platforms now, if you see, the platform will adjust to your pace. The platform can adjust to your style of learning. If you are a more visual learner, then the amount of videos that come to you become a more. If you are a more audio learner, then that information is more. So how can I make learning very personal in nature? Because each of us learns very, very differently. And the more hyper personalized our training is, and technology can really, really help us in doing that. We can see that in so many of our, again, I will go back to these buying platforms, they give us very personalized information, helps in measuring behavioral times. Absolutely, absolutely. So there are a lot of uh, psychology based tools which have now integrated technology that helps us in understanding behavioral patterns of people. Absolutely, and thank you so much for that insight. Yes, so that's where, in fact, XLRI, where I'm doing my PhD, they have a behavior lab where you can actually put people and put EEG and monitors on their brains and understand how their brain is responding in a particular to a particular situation. What we used to do through surveys can now be actually done through technology and neurosciences. So, which is again an evolution of technology that we are using. So yes, that's you're absolutely right on that. So coming back to the learning, so how can we make learning? And the other thing is that because the attention span of today's generation is reducing, if we give large amount of information at one point, they're not able to retain, they cannot engage themselves. This is a generation which is on Instagram, which listens to, which sees reels, so their attention is very, very small. So how can we make learning very small in size, bite-sized digital learning? Because that way we are able to engage more with people. So that's one uh, different way of human resource development that Industry 4.0 brings in and has also become essential. Yes, sir, you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, ma'am, I'm having one question that right now, with respect to the current generation, like the Gen Z, so they don't want to even the work for the 5 day working. So they are preferring for the 4 day. So in that case, means what should be the next step of action from the HR or Industry 4.0 perspective to improve this kind of a situation in future?
And thank you so much. That's a really, really important question because these are the absolutely the conversations that are happening, that this generation wants to have a better work-life balance. They want to spend uh, greater amount of time in less amount of time in work. But if you look at our country, I think we are still a little bit far away from there. Of course, France and other countries have put in a 4 day week, but we are still a little far off from there. But I understand what you're saying because when we are talking about this generation, the amount of effort that they want to put in is really, really less. Uh, they want they want they want more with less effort. Now, to be able to do that, how can we make the allocation rather than time based, can we make it uh, what should I say, role based? Okay, you're supposed to do this amount of work, this needs to be finished, now you finish it in one day, you finish. So how can we bring in more flexibility? The challenge is that we are dealing with that generation with still our old fixed kind of a mindset, and that's where the conflict happens. So we believe that they need to be present for 8 hours, do this kind of. Whereas they say, if I finished my work, that's what is important for you. Why should I be sitting for 8 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours? So rather than looking at efficiency in terms of time, can we look at effectiveness in terms of the outcomes? I think that's a change in perspective that we need to bring in, though it's not easy. I know in academic institutions, it's definitely not easy because there's an amount of discipline that we need to bring in. But the point is, we also need to make the students understand why they need this discipline. Because tomorrow, when they go into the industry works in its own systemized way. They may bring in flexibility, but still there is a system there. So to be able to adopt to that system, they need to understand this sense, a little bit of a sense of discipline has to be bring in. But with that discipline, can I bring a little more flexible approach, which is result oriented rather than time oriented? that may help us, though I don't think we are going to be anywhere near to 4 days working, at least for the next decade, because the conversations that are happening where people are saying that we need to work for 70 hours or 75 hours and all of that is happening. So I don't think, and the kind of employment challenges that we have in our in our country, the competition that we have, I still think that people are still going to work for long number of hours, and our country is one of the countries which has longest number of working hours anywhere in the world. So that is one part, but yes, a little more of flexibility would help. So that's my take, but we don't know how things will evolve in the times to come. Um, the other is, coming back to the training part. How can we make learning more interactive, engaging, and experiential? I think that has become really important. So how can we provide, because that's how students are learning, the Gen Z or the Gen whatever is the next gen that is coming in. How are they learning now? So they are learning through games, they are learning through simulations, they play video games, um, they use all kinds of apps and video making facilities. So that's what they want, because that is what engages them. So how can we make learning more interactive, engaging, and immersive? And I'm not saying we need to use technology only at that point, but how can we keep them present and alive there? That's an important question. And personally, from me, I use technology, but I use specifically in physical training. I use a lot of theater-based activities. I use a lot of storytelling. I use a lot of things which connects with people at a very personal level and also makes them work in small groups. Uh, and within that kind of a play game kind of an environment, they're able to learn and immerse more. And in fact, I've just submitted a paper with another theater practitioner because they had developed a small credit course in which they were teaching entrepreneurship through the use of theater. So it's not only technology that helps us, it is also various other ways of learning that can actually help us. Taking them out into the field by itself, a physical kind of an activity can also help them learn. So how do we build those rather than only presentation, rather than only knowledge? How can we make learning more interactive, more immersive? How can we encourage them to ask questions? I think one of the biggest challenges that we as a nation have, and I'm not I'm not I'm a person who loves my country a lot and my culture a lot, but what I'm saying is, in our culture, this whole idea of questioning a senior is always not encouraged. And I think it's important that we need to question some of the things that are not happening right, whether it is with people who are elder to us or any other way. The only thing is, how do we learn to question effectively? And Socrates was the person whose philosophy was only around how to ask the right questions. So rather than teaching our students to find the right answers, I think we need to teach them to ask the right questions. And most of us, uh, as students, at least I remember when I used to ask some questions in the class, the teacher used to say, "You're disturbing the class," or the course will not finish." I think we need to shift focus from there and see that really relevant questions are asked, because when we ask the right questions, we find the right answers. So I think that is something that training needs to build, and we need to ensure that we are encouraging our students, we are engaging them in ways that will help them in bringing those skills when they actually go on the shop floors, when they actually go into the industry and they become practitioners. So that's important. Mentorship and coaching, extremely important, because knowledge transfer and guidance is important. There is a certain experience that all of us carry. There's a certain technological expertise that they carry. So how can we bring it all together? So especially with students who are struggling with certain areas or struggling with certain behavioral challenges, how can we mentor and coach them so that they are able to evolve into better managers and leaders? That becomes important. And also, there's a lot of tacit knowledge that all of us have, knowledge which cannot be written down, knowledge that is there with us as experience. So how do we transfer that knowledge? Again, is so a lot of organizations, including HL, where I was part of, we had standard mentorship programs, and I know a lot of colleges, including yours, have those mentorship programs. So that becomes important. Collaboration with the academia, strengthening the industry academia partnership, as I think a lot of us in the academia and industry are trying to do. So that is important because industry gives us problems and academicians and students can find solutions at a much lesser cost. So that relationship building becomes very, very important. We cannot anymore work in isolation that I am a teacher and I'm not going to be part of industry, or I'm going to be part of industry only when my students need jobs. So there's a continuous flow of information, problems, solutions, projects that needs to be strengthened, and industry also needs to play a much more active role. I also completely agree to that. And then cross functional training, encouraging multidisciplinary expertise. And today's world is a world of specialist generalists. So earlier we used to say either we are a specialist or we are a generalist. But today we say the managers of today are specialist journalists. That means they have this T framework that they follow. That means they have a depth like a T, the lower part of the T, they have a depth in a certain area. That means they may be very good um, in their mechanical engineering subject, or they may be very good in strategy, but they also need to understand a lot of other things. So even if I'm an engineer, I need to understand a little bit of finance, I need to understand a little bit of human perspective, I need to understand a little bit of supply chain, I need to understand project management, I need to have a width. So it's not about becoming a specialist. It is, yes, you need to have a special skill, but you also need to be understanding a little bit of lot of things that are happening, because that is how we are able to connect the dots. That is how we are able to make sense of things that are happening in the organization. So that cross functional and multidisciplinary expertise and learning becomes very important. So those are the strategies that human resource development needs to have for industry 4.0. Some examples I will give here. Uh, Siemens has started a learning management system that is a AI-driven learning management system which is available 24 by 7 to people. They can choose the skills that they want to learn. Of course, there are some mandatory skills, but beyond that, they have the choice to do that. They can learn it at their own speed. They can learn it the way that they want to learn. So, and this is a system that they are now bringing across their workforce. They started with a pilot project, but they are now driving it across the workforce. So making it like we were talking about, making it very hyper personalized and adaptive to each set of individuals, if not each individual. So that is something that Siemens has already put in place. Amazon has this career choice upskilling initiative where they allow people to learn uh, from either within Amazon or even outside of Amazon. So you can choose a particular skill or a particular technology that you want to learn, and you are given a fixed amount of time and money to be able to do that. So if you want to do a course, you're sponsored to do that particular course, and that could be outside of the organization also. But that needs to you need to bring that skill back into the system and use it in certain projects and products. So that's how Amazon does that. Tata Steel has started a digital transformation exercise across their workforce. As we know, Tata Steel is a huge organization with more than lakh people at all levels. These are the people who have worked with traditional coals, traditional furnaces, and they are training these set of people to work with digital technologies because they understand that in 5 years down the line, this whole the way Tata Steel operates is going to change. There are going to be robots that are working along with people. There's going to be a lot of data that is going to be available. There would be furnaces that could be interconnected with each other. So people need to understand how it is working. So Tata Steel has started a huge digital transformation initiative at all levels across the organization. HAL, where I was part of, has started this upskilling initiative, um, and also disseminating training on AI in Industry 4.0 at all levels across the organization. Aerospace, as we all know, is a very technology intensive sector, and it is in fact people say the first technology comes into aviation and aerospace and then it spreads across the world. So on one side it is a harbinger of technology, but lot of people who have been working with only mechanical systems, have not used digital technologies, are very averse to these changes. So that whole drive has happened over last 3 or 4 years, and it's still continuing, because these changes cannot happen through one program or one initiative. These are changes that take years to seep in into the system, and organization needs to be consistent and persistent with these changes, because they take time. Because as some sir was telling, I think Gurunathan sir was telling, that there are multi generations that are working in the organization. It's just not one generation, and each generation learns at its own pace. So that these are some industry examples that I have shared. So what are the challenges that we face? And I'll just take another 5 minutes and close this. What are the challenges we face when we are trying to adopt to Industry 4.0 and bring it within the organizations or train people in those tools? So, of course, first is the resistance to change. We are all so happy doing things the way we have been doing, and human being by nature is very, very resistant to change, because that requires extra effort, and we none of us wants to put extra effort. The effort will reduce after a period of time, but learning that is effortful, and we none of us wants to put in effort. There's a digital skill gap even within India, where there are mobile phones and data is all across. There is still a gap, because technology is still expensive, and we are not able to reach to all levels within the society. So there's a skill gap that exists, both in terms of physical resources that are available and in terms of teaching and training that is available to people. There are data privacy concerns. A lot of us have those concerns. If you look at the older generation, they don't want to put their bank data on their mobile phones, because they feel that somebody will steal it away from them, and that a lot of it is happening also. So there are data privacy concerns. There's a lot of workforce displacement uh, fear that is there, that technology will come and will replace people. So people are scared to bring in more and more technology, because they feel that we will be replaced and we won't have jobs. And in a country like India, where employment rates are not as good as in the developed countries, that's always a fear, and fear always creates a challenge for learning and doing new things. So that is something there. Work life balance, we have already spoken about a lot. Intergenerational synergy, different generations learn at different paces, different generations come with their own belief systems and perspectives. So how do we build that synergy, so that all of us are able to use technology in the best possible way, and be able to work together? Financial turbulence that happens, so organizations sometimes don't have the resources to invest in these technologies, and there is a lot of organizations that fail just because there's so much change that is happening around the world. There's financial turbulence, and we can see it happening right now, even in the share market. There are smaller companies that are just vanishing day in and day out. So those are the challenges that exist when we talk about bringing in some of these technologies. So future trends is, of course, automated talent management. We've already seen immersive learning experience, AR and VR. In fact, in today's paper itself, I was reading about how VR is going to change the way we experience and work in the industry, and how we even impart training, because these are really immersive experiences. Balancing the technical and soft skills, we've already spoken about that. Data driven decision making rather than intuitive decision making, and SDG aligned leadership and culture, because the 17 SDG goals are actually looking at the entire gamut of things that we are talking about, whether it is education, whether it is work, whether it is poverty, quality, innovation. All of the aspects are covered in the SDG 17 goals that we are talking about. So how do we align leadership and organizational culture to be able to fulfill these SDG aligned goals? So these are the future trends that are going to there. I'll just finish with this, because this is a slight uh, shift from what we are talking about. The fact that the only difference between AI and human being is this factor of consciousness. What we in our Indian culture we call the Atma, or the other cultures put give different names to it, but it's the basic human consciousness, and that's the barrier AI is actually trying to break. How can you bring this human consciousness into AI? That's the next barrier for AI, and I hope that doesn't get fulfilled too soon, because that's what makes us human. It's that consciousness that exists in each one of us, that awareness of ourselves, that awareness of others, the awareness that we are all connected at a very, very human level. That's what makes us human. And that is something AI can never, never take away from us. So the more aware we become of ourselves and the more aware we enable others to become of themselves, I think is the only way we can survive this gamut of AI and this replaceability fear of AI. Because this human consciousness is unique to us, is the only thing that makes us different in addition to emotions, different from robots. And that's the only barrier AI has not been able uh, to transcend as of now. So, and how do we develop this consciousness? This consciousness comes from the fact that we are all breathing at all point of time in our life. And the more we are connected to our own breaths, the more we are connected to our own bodies and our breaths, the more conscious we are. The challenge with technology is that technology has made us programmed. Sometimes we don't even know that we are doing something. And the more conscious and aware we become, the more we will be able to use technology in a way that's effective, in a way that we are not driven by technology, but the technology enables us. It's we are not slaves to technology, but we are the owners of technology, and that's where human consciousness comes in. So this sense of awareness of being constantly present, being in the moment, is something that we need to develop in ourselves and in students, and that I think is one of the ways that we can actually make ourselves different from technology. And that's the last bit that I will say. And any questions that you have, uh, most welcome to ask. Uh, just a conclusion slide that I've put, you can just go through that. I already shared what all I had to share. Any questions, any thoughts? Um, and I will stop the sharing. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can go through my website, and most welcome to ask questions and anything that you have in your mind. I hope I was able to do justice to the session.
Yeah, ma'am, I am having one question that regarding as a part of HR means what should be the in futuristic next 5 year with Industry 4.0, and it will be linkage as a LNOD part for the blue collar people.
So, sir, we've already shared that for blue collar people, one is, of course, we need to teach them the technology skills. They need to understand the basic fundamentals of whether it is programming or whether it is understanding data. So that has to be told at all levels in the organization. But in addition to that, we also need to build ability to collaborate with all kinds of people. I think that is extremely important. And to be able to, I think the most important thing, and I'll again reiterate that, is this ability to change. How quickly we can change when technology changes, how quickly we can change when my job changes, how quickly can I change when my role changes. I think this ability to constantly change and not be scared of change, to be ready to adopt to change as quickly as possible, I think that mindset is developing. That mindset is extremely important, because when we have the mindset, then we are able to actually learn very fast. So, as teachers, you all know that it's the mind that plays all our games. There are students we've seen who may not be very bright students, but they are willing to learn, and we see that they progress much better in life than the people who are the toppers, because they have a different mindset about everything. So it's a lot about mindset. So how do we develop that mindset becomes extremely important.
So, ma'am, means it's my query because I am working in the one of the reputed organization
Thank
where we are having a 80-20 percentage of ratio with the contractual person and permanent person.
you.
So, with respect to that, iteration rate is very high,
Hmm.
and whatever the contractual person will be there, that they are means. Not means they are having a eighth pass or ninth pass. So
Correct.
with respect to that, to give the training and to develop and mitigate the requirement from the organization in this current VUCA world. It's been quite challenging. So, with respect to that, in upcoming next 5 years, how the industry 4.0 can help in this matter?
Sir, of course, this whole idea of this gig working and contract is a challenge because people don't stay for that long. The moment they get a little bit of skill, they are ready to leave the organization. Of course, that is one part of the story. But as long as they stay, how much are they able to deliver? So, in terms of that, what kind of if and I'll talk only about the training bit. What kind of training we can provide to them so that they feel that um, see, sir, I'll answer it from a different perspective. All of us want to learn and grow eventually and to progress in life, right? So, how are we able to give them the skills that they feel that once they become expert in that, that will make them earn a little bit better? So, when they are able to do that, then teaching technology to them, of course, at a ground level, it is a challenge. But how can we make so? How can we teach technology through, let's say, games? Right. Now, this is something that I am not an expert, but I know people who are expert. How can we teach technology through stories? Now, this can become a starting point because when we teach technology in very jargon kind of a language, people are very resistant. They say हमको तो हम तो we are not we haven't learned so much, so हमें नहीं समझ में आता. So how can we make it more what should I say, in a way that is understandable to them, in a language that they are able to understand? And that is where we need to bring in innovation as a trainer and a facilitator. And that's why I say that when specifically when I use tools like art, drawing, conversation with each other, learning from each other, all of that actually helps then, rather than just sitting and putting them in a class and telling कि ये technology है, ये तरीका है, आप सीख लीजिए. So how can we make it more immersive, bringing them actually on the shop floor, or uh, putting them hands on and seeing whether they are able to learn, and then tell them the theory behind it. How is it working? So maybe that reverse approach. So for each group, we need to find a different approach. So one approach does not work with all kinds of people. But you are right in saying that at that level, it is difficult to actually disseminate that jargonish kind of thing. So how can we use different innovative techniques to be able to do that? I think that's a challenge for us.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you.
Right.
Ma'am, would like to add on one.
Please. Yes, ma'am.
So in this fast growing world, are we giving that much time for the kids to understand in your language?
And that's the challenge,
Given a
right?
time we can do anything, right?
Yes. And I think that's the challenge, that we have all become very impatient.
Yeah, because we are asking them to train in no
Correct.
time and get ready with the market as robots.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. You are
So
right.
even with the class also, there are several ways of making the students learn things.
Correct.
Slow learners will be there, and
Correct.
high attitude will be there. So
Correct.
to bring them all in a period of those 45 or 50 scheduled hours, we are struggling a lot. But are we giving sufficient time for them to grow and think?
Correct. Correct. And I think
Many are there. They are available methods are there. Even if they
correct.
want to come up, also they can explore. But
Correct.
are we, as a parent, as an employer, as something else, are we giving sufficient time for budding them?
Correct. No, you are right. Absolutely. And I think that's a challenge of our educational system also, to a large extent.
Yeah.
And we can do as much as we do. I always say that I can change what I can change.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But this
cannot
is
change the
imposing
world.
unethical ways forcibly,
Correct. No,
which
you're
which
absolutely right. You are right. That's a big challenge, and I think only thing we can do is give them a little bit time. Uh, yeah, some more time and effort can be given to them, and okay, can we mute Dr. Aditi? I think can you mute yourself?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, I don't have an answer to that, but the point is that if we can even change a few lives, I think our job is done. I mean, I cannot change the world, but if I can change a few lives.
Proportionately, since 20 years of teaching, I'm into that struggle only, educating these in ethical ways. But the proportionate of students which we are sending out to the industry or whatever it is very challenging for us.
Correct, correct.
So we are trained when they are open to the atmosphere, they are forcibly into that same regime.
Correct, correct. I think one of the things is that if we are able to build the right core in them, that means certain values, certain principles, certain ways of thinking and doing things. The remaining they will learn. I think they are smart generation. They are very smart
Yes, yes.
generation.
Mm.
So if we are able to spend some time there and train them on certain basic core principles, I think their technologies and skills is technology
They
is
could
easier
learn.
to learn. Yeah,
They could learn,
but
yes, yes.
if that core is not set right, then kuch bhi karenge, it will not work at all.
It won't work.
Yeah, I
It's a
think
big
that's
challenge for either side.
very big challenge. Absolutely, we struggle with our own kids. No, what
Yeah. That's what.
yeah,
That is a experience I thought of sharing with you because
yes,
we brought up with some values and that, and once they
correct,
are open to the external society, everywhere they find something different what they have learned. Even my students also complain the same thing.
correct, correct.
Mm.
But I think we all go through. I mean, even the students, they will go through something. They will make mistakes, and I mean, like I tell my son, I'm just giving this again. Told him that these are your years to make mistakes. Make as many mistakes as you can,
They
but
can learn.
they just learn from it and just stay with certain values that you think are important for you. And our
Yeah.
role as parents and teachers and leaders is just to guide them, nudge them, prod them.
Yeah.
Eventually each person goes on their own path. uh,
Yes.
that's all we can do. I mean, as individuals, that's all we can do. But yes, I agree with you that our system needs to change a bit.
Change a lot. Mm.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you a lot for your enlightening this 1.5 hour. I doesn't even know how it passed, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'm glad it
Yeah,
was helpful.
interaction with the audience also. It is
Y-
highly appreciable.
Yeah, ma'am. I'm. Can I share one of my experience, means
Sure,
with
sir. Sure,
yeah, sir.
sure, sir.
So, ma'am, I am the process excellence guy. So the training part in my industry, I have been take care. So during that time, means once I will be complete the theory part. So after completion of the theory part, I also prefer to complete the land of practice. So means it's a two-way of a part. One is a land of theory, which will be communicated through the training part, and the second one is a land of practice. And with this, I am bridging the gap between the land of theory and
Correct.
land of practice. So with respect
Absolutely.
to that, the means the employee can easily be understand that this is how this particular phenomena or this particular methodology has been working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are absolutely doing a great job, sir. I think that is really important. And I'll just add that there is another way. Sometimes we are not able to give them hands-on experience, so we can actually make them shadow somebody who's doing the same thing.
Yeah,
So
ma'am.
that's also another way in which we can actually help them bridge that gap, what you're talking about. So thank you so
Yeah,
much
ma'am.
for sharing that.
Yeah, ma'am.
Really
Thank you,
helpful.
ma'am.
Thank you. Any more questions? Anything else? So thank you all so much for being there. And I know I would have loved to be physically present, but yeah, that's the power of technology that we are all using. And thank you to Dr. Saraswati for having me here. It was wonderful. And I hope it was meaningful for you.
Yes, Dr. Suparna,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your enlightening session. And we also remember that you began the session facing a challenge. You said the earlier session engaging, and that's going to be a challenge to you. But of course, we enjoyed your session equally or even more than the other sessions, definitely. So, on
Thank you.
behalf of everyone present, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude for your enlightening presentation on HR skills, ethical leadership, and the roles of managers of today. So, your expertise and passion for the subject matter shown throughout, and your engaging delivery made the session truly enjoyable and engaging. So, your insights on effective leadership, strategic management, and HR best practices were invaluable. And we appreciate the time you took to share your knowledge with us. Your presentation was a perfect blend of theory and practical application, making it relatable and relevant to our everyday work culture. So please accept our sincerest appreciation for your contribution to our learning and growth. We are grateful for your presence and look forward to future opportunities to learn from you. So once again, thanks for your inspiring presentation, Dr. Suparna.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here. It was really wonderful, and I mean, thank you for your really kind words.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. It was
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So can we log off or?
Yes, madam. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye bye. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good time ahead. Thank you.
All of you, please fill the attendance and feedback form. Naresh, be on the line for 10 minutes and end the meeting.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all.
సాపడండి